Robert Mailing with the Sioux Empire Podcast, and I am here with Jolene Loetscher.
Yes.
Who is running for Sioux Falls Mayor. Jolene, before we get started, do you have any opening statement or main thesis on why you're running?
It's funny that you asked that because, as you well know, I think we've done, I was trying to do the math the other day, I think 12 hours already of debates.
It's amazing how many forums there have been.
And there are still, I bet, another 12 to come. So every day it's like, here's your 2-minute opening. And
you'll all be well vetted. But part of the format here is that I know we've got a hard break. We've both got stuff going on. But the idea with the Sioux Empire Podcast questionnaire here is that you can go long form. You can take as long or as short answering questions as you want within
a little bit of reason, right?
But yeah, you're not. There's no like explain this master thesis worth of how to prevent crime in a major metropolitan area. You have 30 seconds.
You don't
each.
want my 38-page preview article and my preview journal piece. I'm excited to be running for mayor. I think this is a city I came to 18 years ago. Like so many other people around here, I grew up in a rural town. I was a farm kid. I did the 4-H thing, and I got my first job in Sioux Falls, and it was just home. Like I knew that's where I was meant to be, and I met my husband, and this was home, and I had that TV career, which was really great, and then moved into being an entrepreneur. Did the corporate gig for a little bit, but while I was there, got the itch to be an entrepreneur, and then we started our businesses, and they've done very well, and I'm really proud of where they're at, but then also had that opportunity to take what had happened to me as a child, and I was abused, sexually abused, and change legislation from a citizen advocate perspective. So I went to Peer and we removed the statute of limitations on criminal rape, and then in 2014 we passed Jolene's Law, which of course is obviously named after me, but it's the story of so many other people that it really carries forward. And so we have just done incredible things with that, and it's a 10-year plan to end child abuse in the state of South Dakota. And that I could go on and on with you for about 132 pages of what those 10 years will entail. But that experience and the business experience, and I think too, in part, becoming a mom and realizing I just wanted to leave the city in an even better place than what I found it for my daughter, so that she would have the same opportunities I did here. When I started thinking about how do I serve and how do I continue to give back, the mayor's race it made sense for me.
Sure. Here's my first listener-submitted question.
Yes.
What will you do to protect public input?
Yeah. Well, for people that haven't been to city council meetings, which what's really amazing to me anymore is that I will run into folks and they were like, oh, I heard so-and-so at public input or whatever. I think we're getting people engaged in that process, and public input it's vital, right? We've got to have that opportunity for people to come forward before they're elected officials and give their opinion. It's crucial. It's fundamental to democracy. Mr. Wilson, my high school history professor, would have probably been like, if you don't have public input and all of that. But I think, yes, we have to protect it. It is part of that process of those meetings. But I think what we have to do to strengthen that and empower the citizen's voice is have other outlets for engagement. And that's where I think we're missing huge opportunities, and where I sense a lot of frustration with folks is that they want more places to engage and have their voice heard. I hear it time and time again when I go places. The first thing out of people's mouths is just, I don't know if I can trust what's being done. I don't know if my voice matters. And then they feel bad, like, oh, I shouldn't say that, or I shouldn't care why these deals are done. You should care. You 100% should care, because that is your money. And this is your city, so you should care. So when it comes to protecting it, I think part of that is enhancing it. And part of enhancing it is those city council meetings should be on Facebook Live. We should be streaming those. The technology's there. It is easy to do. No excuse not to do it. And CityLink has done a great job, but that's just helping us evolve with the times.
Yep.
And so I think that is something more we need to do. And for me personally, to keep that commitment of engagement and interaction, I will keep doing Facebook Live sessions. I've been the only candidate to do those. And yes, it opens you up to questions and criticism. That's not a bad thing. And, you know, some of the feedback that we've gotten, you step back and you go, yeah, that was really good, and I wouldn't have gotten it in any other format. And I think when you hear folks say, I'm going to be open and transparent when you elect me. Well, really? You can't you can't do it during the campaign? Then how do I know you're going to do it when you're in office? So I think from a mayor's perspective, it will be important for me to keep that engagement there too. And then we opened up a text line. So people can text into the campaign their questions, and sometimes we do get kind of random funny questions. People, for whatever reason, people are not filtered when they text.
No, they're not. As somebody who receives texts through the blog and podcast, they really are not filtered. It's all out there.
Yeah, but I mean, I appreciate it, and you know, we've got one like really late at night once, and all of a sudden like it goes off, and I was like, oh man, you know, somebody having a lot of fun, or you know, you never know with a late night text.
Yeah.
And it was just a really awesome. All it said was, "Let's go, Joe."
Nice.
And that was really cool. So I think when we talk about protecting public input, it's about also enhancing it. What can we add to it? And as elected officials, as public servants, because that's the way the mayor's role should be seen. That's what a city council member should see their role as. As public servants, we should want to hear what the public has to say, because that's who we're supposed to serve. And so I think it's how do we look for ways to make that easier and more accessible too.
Sure. And so you're thinking some of these expanding public outreach, that's something for sure you'd be looking at is like live streaming,
yeah,
or Facebook live streaming the city council meetings. Very cool. Second question.
Okay.
Kind of related to this, what would you do to increase, this has been a big one this year, increase government transparency? So,
and I think those two questions really they play in really well together, and I probably have answered some of it before in some ways. So part of it is how do we open up engagement, give people more opportunities to interact. So obviously the Facebook Live and the text line, which that text line, we will keep that line going. And then I think for transparency as well, one of the things that I hear constantly from folks is, why did we do this deal or why did we do that deal? And their frustration that comes with not understanding why or how those decisions were made. And we've talked about, in the literal sense, we will take the door off the mayor's office, right? We will literally take that door off, right? I haven't thought about until now where I'm going to store the door. Maybe we'll make some display.
There's got to be a closet in there.
Yeah, we'll stick it in a closet. We'll put the door in a closet. That should work.
We'll find a way.
We will find a way. We've got a new city administration building, so I'm sure somewhere there we could save a few bucks, put that door over on an office over there. So we've said that we'll literally take that door off, but when it comes to the deals that we're doing and why we're doing them, when we make major decisions in my administration, we will do a one-page summary that explains why we did it, and in the true vein of being transparent, the pros and the cons of how that came, right? Not just a fluff selling to the public why it was done, because people are smart. And that's where I get really ticked off, is that this assumption that you, citizens, are not smart enough to understand why we, the people that you elected, came to the decision that we did. And so, we need to put it out there. Here's why we did this. These were the good reasons for doing it, and these were the things that gave us pause. But in the end, here's your ROI as a citizen on this.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's see. What are your goals if elected? Now, I've asked candidates this before. I've had some people who are like, here's my website, go check them out. And then I had one person who shall remain nameless but knows who he is that spent about 45 minutes on this question. So, anywhere in between on there, just feel free to talk about highlight different planks in your platform if you wish. Absolutely.
Well, we've talked about trust and transparency, which to me is fundamental. And I think if we don't have trust and transparency, it comes down to How can you trust that the city is going to make sure that you personally can be financially secure? How can you trust that we're going to make decisions that will keep you safe? That's why that is so crucial. One of the other areas that we really want to tackle is innovation, and how can we better use innovation. And of course that theme runs back through with Facebook Live and some of those things, but also public transportation. And public transportation in the city needs to be run like it's 2018. And you will hear critics say, we don't have population density, or it's going to cost us money. We have to provide that ability for people to get to work, to get to a doctor's appointment, in a city where housing costs are going up. And students are coming out of college with an unprecedented amount of debt, and maybe they can't afford or don't want to have a car. We need to be modernizing that public transportation system. So we have proposed tiering the bus system. So essentially, core of the city uses big buses as they meet the ridership needs, but then getting out to those edges, utilizing microbuses, smaller buses. Other cities are using them, and they're smaller, they're more nimble, they're going to take less gas. They have some efficiencies there, but then also using software to help us better route. There are communities between 50 and 100,000, so you're looking at similar populations where they're using software that can use a cell phone beacon to help a driver know someone's where they are. So instead of your standard routes, right, like you're here at 902 and here at 905.
Very static.
It's very, very static. And that's not the world we live in. We live in a fluid, dynamic world. And so when you get there, you can buzz it, and wherever that route is, now they're not going to go down every side street, right? But it can help the driver get rerouted in a way that's more efficient for them. No reason to go all the way around here if nobody's there.
Making it a little bit more ride-share-y kind of app-oriented.
App-ish, right. So we're not taking the role of cabs or taxis or Lyft or Uber out, because it is a different need, but we are going to help supplement it and feed into that. We have talked a lot about, from day one of the campaign, the Premier Center area, and that we've put a lot of money into that. And we need to be really focusing on maximizing that. We know that sales tax revenue is at 1.2% growth. So what can we do to help bring in more dollars? And for folks that go out to events there and go to shows, and I will tell you, I went to, this probably speaks to the dynamic or the spectrum of my musical taste. So I went to Garth Brooks and I went to Foo Fighters.
Sure.
And what I saw was all kinds of people coming in, and a lot of them from out of the city.
Yeah. And
coming in, going to that show, having a couple beers, watching Garth Brooks, and what is his name? My husband's gonna be so embarrassed I forgot it. It's the guy that always smiles. It's the drummer for Foo Fighters. Taylor Hawkins.
There you go.
Taylor Hawkins. Okay, so I've redeemed myself in his.
Good save. Good save.
Go in, you watch that, and then what's that? Just stream of cars hopping back up on the interstate going out of town. And we have a unique opportunity right now where, you've got the county building there, you've got the guard building, and yes, we put in a hotel and a restaurant, but we need to be doing more there to maximize that and use public-private partnerships to do that. And that doesn't mean that we do that at the expense of downtown either. And when we talk about public transportation, bringing in these holistic solutions, we've got to be sure that we are connecting what we build there into an entertainment district with what downtown is and what it will be as well. So if you do live downtown, and we have 2,000 people and counting that live downtown, if you live down there and you want to go to a show, out at the Premier Center, you don't have to worry about your car, you don't have to worry about parking. You hop on bus, microbus, whatever fits that need, and you head out and you go and take that all in.
Sure.
So I think those things are really important. Growing jobs, growing the economy, and I think you're going to hear everybody say that, right?
Yeah.
That is your standard politician. Boilerplate. Like, what do I care about? I care about stopping crime and getting jobs in the city, right? No one's going to tell you otherwise.
No one has yet to take the bold stand of being pro-crime.
It's crazy, right? So yes, we need to keep growing jobs and we need to keep growing the economy. I think what we bring that is a different perspective is, and in all of these areas and all of these issues, the difference being a lot of folks in this campaign will point to problems. You know, we've got a problem with the roads, we've got a problem with growing sales tax, we've got a problem with bringing in new industry. Okay, we do. Now give me a solution. And that for us is a very stark contrast because we have been bringing solutions. So when we talk about jobs in the economy, biotech, obviously a huge opportunity there. I can speak to it from a business I've grown in that arena. And then also cybersecurity. If you look over at Dakota State University, they have one of the few cybersecurity programs in the country, and they're graduating local students. I call them kids the older I get. Local kids, right? And where are they going? Out. So a lot of times we kind of shake our fists and go, we need more workers. Well, we got them. So what we need is to recruit those industries in. I think that's really important. I think it is crucial when we talk about goals and perspective in that office for a mayor is a mayor that is very strong in their stance that we as a city accept diversity. And that, to me, is not just a morality issue, that is an economic issue. That if we are going to grow this economy and we are going to recruit businesses in, guess what? Those businesses are going to want to know that their employees or potential employees, or they themselves as business owners, are coming to a city that accepts them if they are LGBTQ, accepts them regardless of what their faith practices are. And so I think that's really important that we have a mayor that is open and strong in that perspective. And then, you said no one's going to sit here and say they're pro-crime. No. And crime has been one of those topics that is getting talked about a lot right now.
Yes, it is.
And it tends to be in an election year, too, becomes a topic of conversation. Is the city growing? Yes. Are we seeing drug cases, drug arrests going up? Yes, we are. When it comes to crime and what we need to do, I can tell you nobody understands that better that's on that ballot or has done more personally than I have. I have done work for Jolene's Law. I have protected families. And we've done it in a way that is different than what anyone has done when they've tackled huge problems in this state or in this city before. And with Jolene's Law, when we brought everyone around the table and said, okay, we are going to end child abuse. And if people want to make fun of us for saying that, oh, you're never going to end child abuse. Really? Why try and stop us? Right? Yeah, it is a big goal, and we've got a 10-year timeline, and we're moving forward on that. But what we did with that I think in part made it very different was it was different agencies, different organizations. So you had legislators, you had state agencies, you had nonprofits, you had advocates, you had law enforcement and prosecutors, you had educators, and you had healthcare. The people that sat around that table, and I think it probably ticked off some people initially, were not the big fancy titles. We put there the people that deal with the cases day in and day out. And that teamwork, that consensus building is what we need to keep Sioux Falls safe and to look at these issues, of our rising, drug crimes and what do we need to do. And I also think that when we look at crime, and we'll take drug use, drug arrests specifically, we cannot let that live in a silo. That we can't just simply look at someone and go, oh, well, they're using meth or they're using, whatever drug. My drug lingo is not very strong. But that they're doing that because they are a bad person or they are an evil person or anything like that. What we need is an approach that says, in the short term, here's what we need to do, right? We need to provide rehabilitative services. We need to focus on mental health care. And in part, that's one of our telemedicine tablet ideas of helping connect people more to those services. But then we also need to be committed to a 20-year plan. And I think that scares people. Because you're saying, whoa, it's going to take 20 years? We're going to focus on this right now and we're going to make improvements. But yeah, if we really want to end this, it's going to take us 20 years. And that means looking at our kids and our families and getting them the resources that they need. I can tell you from our work with Jolene's Law, what we know is that children who are homeless, who are sexually abused, who witness violence, their propensity, because of how their brain develops, if it does not have access to mental health resources, that brain develops in a way that it essentially goes into survival mode. And the decision-making part of it, for lack of a better term, short circuits. And so that child that's exposed to that trauma and that adversity at 4 years old, where do we see them in 14 years?
Yeah, trauma and pain and, like criminal element, it's self-perpetuating.
Yes.
And I think as we understand genetics and neurology as we go into this, we're seeing that more and more as how much of it is determined by that. They're talking about, like, a pregnant mother who experiences like severe stress while she's pregnant that can have huge implications on the DNA of the child that can actually alter, which, that's some newer research and that's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
But
well, and this is where like the super nerd comes out in me. I was not a cool kid in school because like I was the kid that read like Newsweek. And so the super nerd in me comes out where if you look at the Harvard Center for the Developing Child, they do these brain maps of children. And from when they're very, very little, when they're newborns, all the way through the span of their life. And they literally map out and watch that when that child has been exposed to something, that brain does not grow the way it should. Now we can heal it. And I think that's the optimistic part. This isn't a doom and gloom and there's no hope.
Right.
But and what frustrates me at times is in this city we have a lot of resources and we have things that are living in those silos that we need to be doing a better job of bringing them together to help with those kinds of things. And that's what we saw with Jolene's Law. When we got folks around the table, one of the issues, one of the DCI agents came to us with early on that was on the task force, and he said, I don't know if you guys know this, but we have families that when a case is reported in, they have to drive 3 to 4 hours to get to a forensic interview to get resources that they need. And if you're in a small town, and you've got 1 or 2 police officers to drive 3 and 4 hours, and then be there with that child and through that process for another 3 to 6 hours, and then drive them back. And he said it was a big hurdle for law enforcement and for these families, right? How do you commit that time? He goes, I just wish we could do this. And he holds up this map, and it was like this dream map where he drawn all these circles. I always mean to ask him, like, hopefully he used a protractor, but and I don't know if kids even use protractors anymore, but
they've got to, right?
I hope so. Like, protractors were awesome, except for like if you accidentally like tripped on them. Then
and you could really stab yourself.
Wait, was that the protractor? Or what was the one that did that? That was the.
Oh, that's the compass.
That's the compass. I got my terminology. Yeah, the compass was the dangerous one. Yeah, but the protractor, I'm sure you could.
Not so much.
I was a little more safe. But he had come in with this map, and he goes, I just wish we could do this. And then almost every child in the state would be 2 hours or less from facilities. And someone said, well, what do we need to do that? How do we make that happen? And he's like, well, we need a building, and we need, this and this for equipment and whatnot. And suddenly, you had people that had never sat around the table before, and also never sat around the table before in a way that they knew they could be completely unguarded. And one of the physicians that was on the task force from Sanford was like, hey, you guys know Watertown has clinic space. And then someone else said, hey, we have grant money we have to use up. Now, and suddenly it was this domino of, wait, what? So this piece you have and this piece you have? And so back in September or October, I think it was September, we opened up the Regional Reporting Center. It's called REACH up in Watertown. And then kids can go there. There's prosecutors there. There are forensic interviewers. There are mental health resources. It's a one-stop. And it costs taxpayers $0.
Wow.
And so I think that is, when you ask about what makes my candidacy different, is a track record like that. And also somebody that isn't going to give up. I mean, we've gotten told no a lot, right? We've gotten told, oh, that's a pie in the sky and all of that. You know what? If I get a bite of the pie, what's so bad about that? So those are some of my big, and I could probably fill the rest of our podcast going through, but I think innovation, transportation, transparency, and trust. And then as we look at safety, empowering law enforcement, giving them the training they need. That's something that we've done differently with Jolene's Law, is also looking at interagency training and getting the resources to law enforcement that they need, and then looking at how can we bring in master trainers for different things and be cost effective with that, but give them the education and the resources that they need. And so I think that'll be really important too.
Excellent. Let's see. This next one kind of goes with the public safety you were talking about. Other than expanding the police force, what would you do to proactively respond to rising crime?
Yeah. I think it's a given. We've got to have a force that is in line and grows with the city as the population grows. Beyond that, I think what we've got to do is, one, start looking at the problems and the challenges and those growing drug arrests, not just from that siloed view of, hey, these are drugs and those are bad, but how do we educate children? How do we work more cooperatively with our school districts as well? That, again, when we're looking at siloed perspectives, school problems and challenges are not something that we as a city and a municipality should turn our back on. I look at programs like Early Matters. It's a program in Texas that some cities have used, and Early Matters was really started through the championing of a mayor who came into her city and said, okay, we have rising crime. What are we going to do? Okay, well, we're going to empower law enforcement, we're going to give them training, we're going to put more boots on the ground, but how do we get to that long-term solution? And what they knew was that they were facing declining literacy rates at that 3rd grade level.
Ouch.
And people go, well, okay, right, but that's a school problem, right? That's not a mayor's problem, that's not a city's problem.
Yeah.
It is a city's problem.
Their problem.
It is a city's problem, because the crime concerns and the economics, those are city issues. Now, Texas is a little bit different, obviously, in what they've got available for preschool and some of those different nuanced things. But what Early Matters did was, and there were curriculums and some of those things, but it also empowered people within the community to go out and to read to children in underserved populations and neighborhoods, so that mom and dad might be working 2 jobs, and they get home, what do they got? A couple hours with their kids when they're awake, maybe an hour or 2, and so figuring out ways to read to those kiddos. And I sound like a mom when I say kiddos, don't I? To read to those kids, and something as simple as that, and then also empower, what I would see too is empowering our city staff. Saying to, not just our librarians, but to our law enforcement, to our building services. Hey, if you guys want to go read to this group of kids, we want to take that hour as a financial investment in the city's well-being. And what these cities are now seeing is all of a sudden that 3rd grade reading level doing this. And I think what will be really exciting is and I think the program right now, these kids are at 6th or 7th grade, where we end up once they start graduating. But I think it's pretty easy. I think it's common sense to go, if kids can read and they can succeed in school, they can succeed economically.
Yeah, and that makes it feel more like a community,
It does. And so when we talk about what do we need to do to be proactively addressing our crime issues and our crime challenges, it's centralizing those mental health resources, knowing that we have ways to get those to people. It is helping children heal, and it is making sure that kids can succeed and have that open dialogue with the mayor's office and our school districts. We're not just the Sioux Falls School District in the city, and so being sure that what I see happening is, for me, bringing in those superintendents too and going, okay, what can we do as a city to help you with the challenges you face? And amongst those, we'll also be looking at when our school districts are looking to build, and I know Sioux Falls is looking at possibly a new high school, and I know Harrisburg has some growth needs. When we're digging up dirt, taxpayer money, right, to build, what are the other needs of the city from a safety perspective? Can we put a precinct location there? Can we put library or fire? What else can we do if we're already turning up the dirt and pouring a foundation to be more cohesive in our services and our support?
Very good. Let's see. How will you ensure that, and this is another one, you've kind of touched on a lot of these already, but how will you ensure that Sioux Falls is a community that welcomes people of all walks of life? And they specifically list LGBT, immigrant, refugee, etc.
Yeah. I will tell the story that this kind of took me aback. Early on in the campaign, we had a panel. It was a diversity and inclusion panel. And when I was there, I was the only candidate that said, listen, I will stand up for you if you are LGBTQ. I will stand up for you, for your diversity, racial, ethnic, religious. And then a couple months later, I was at a coffee shop, and a man came up to me and he said, are you Jolene? And I'm like, yeah. Which I was like, I mean, there aren't a lot of 4'11" and a half, tall women that are running for mayor and have their name on their Mini Cooper.
I always think of when someone comes up to you in public and goes, are you so-and-so, so-and-so? And you're like, yes.
Yes, yeah. And I was like, I think so. Should I not be? And he looked and he goes, my boyfriend and I, it means so much that you would even say LGBTQ. That means so much. And I was struck by it because to me, and I hope this doesn't come off wrong, it didn't seem like a big deal to say that. Mm-hmm. To me, I was saying what is right and what our citizens should be hearing from their mayor. But then realizing when he said that they're not hearing that. They're not hearing that from City Hall. They're not hearing that from elected officials in Pierre. They're not hearing it. So I think
in this community, it's not always a guaranteed thing.
Right. And I will say I'm frustrated because I got to count now here, LGBTQ, 5 letters.
Yep.
Those are 5 letters that in everywhere I've been, I am the only one on that ballot that has said those letters publicly. And that shouldn't be the case in 2018. So part of it is knowing that you have a mayor that isn't scared to say that and isn't scared to say, if you're a refugee and you've come to this city and you want to succeed, we're going to help you succeed. And I've been to the naturalization ceremonies, which I don't know, have you ever been to any?
I have not.
It is the most fun. It is. There was one woman who I think was in her 80s at the last one I went to.
Oh, wow.
And she's a U.S. citizen now. And it was, I remember her granddaughter was helping her register to vote.
Aww.
And she said it was the proudest day for her grandma.
That's awesome.
And that was really cool. And that's what we want in this city. That's what we need in this city. We are not going to just keep growing a workforce as well if we don't have a mayor that is accepting of the diversity of this city. And I think that's really important. And, I know that the anti-discrimination ordinance that came up a year and a half ago, part of the argument was, well, it's duplicative. Well, you know what? If we say twice we don't believe discrimination is a good thing, that's not a bad thing.
You can live with that.
I can live with that, yeah. I mean, if we're going to duplicate something and what we're duplicating is saying we embrace you and we accept you and that discrimination is not okay in this city, that's what we should be saying. Duplicate that 1,000,000 times over. That should be what we should do. And so I think for the listener that put that question in, I will be loud. I will be proud of our diversity and where there are places to stand up for it, and when we have to champion for it, Sioux Falls will be the city that does that too, because you have a mayor that believes in that.
Very good. This next, hang on, one more here.
Yeah.
A few more here, but it wasn't the question I thought. Okay, how would you get more living wage jobs in Sioux Falls?
Okay, I'm going to Monster Energy drink that one real quick. So I think when we look at living wage, I will first of all talk from the perspective of being a business owner and what I've done. I've never been the highest paid employee in my company. I wouldn't have my companies, and I wouldn't have that success if I didn't have good employees. So I think a lot of it is we as a city have to, one, as a mayor, be very candid when we do have companies going, I don't know how to hire. You know, are you paying folks what you need to pay? Now, that said, you know, we pay, starting out, one of our companies, seasonal help, is $15 an hour. It can still be really hard to hire. So when we're looking at what do we do for living wage jobs, I think what we've got to be doing too is going back to where you and I started at. I think one of our early questions is what industries are we recruiting in? And we kind of look at the ebb and flow of the economy of Sioux Falls.
Yep.
We had meat packing and we had banking. And those were all industries that when they came in, what did they do? Everybody rose up with it. You know, I mean, the meat packing came in, we rose up, we rode, you know, that tide came. And then banking we came, and then healthcare. But we've got to start looking out. And what's going to come next? What's going to bring in that industry that will pay those living wages? And that's where I think we've just got this huge opportunity in biotech. I think uniquely positioned if we specifically look at the ag sector. We are in South Dakota. And yes, we are Sioux Falls, and yes, we are the biggest city, but drive out around us.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I love about this town. I was a farm kid, right? So every time I get that, like, itch, especially in the fall and the spring, and I'm like, I just want to smell, like, that dirt turning.
Yep.
It is right over there. So we have that opportunity to, I think, do more with recruiting in those ag industries. You've got SAB Biotherapeutics, which used to be called Hematech, that's relocated to Sioux Falls, that does polyclonal therapies. And you know, that's a company that is starting to do work that I think is going to revolutionize healthcare, and it's going to revolutionize the ag industry. So essentially they take these antibodies and they grow them in cloned cattle that then can help people. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is for us a unique, you know, as an advertising person, that's my USP, right? My unique selling proposition there is, hey, we have an ag market, we've got the space for livestock, and we've got a healthcare industry. Boom. That is a perfect fit. And we need to be looking for more companies like that, more startups along that way. And then, as we were talking about earlier, too, cybersecurity. I don't know the last time you had your phone hacked. You might be a little more high-tech than I am, but that you've had something hacked.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, I would consider myself relatively tech-savvy, but I had that CC cleaner on all my machines that ended up getting hacked like a year ago, and I'm just like, that's supposed to be one of the things that's actually rock solid.
Right, that was supposed to fix that.
Yeah.
So that's an area too. And again, we've got the graduates that unfortunately are leaving the state because we don't have the jobs. So what we need is a mayor that I think can speak to that entrepreneurial community, that can say, hey, listen, to those that are starting out, this is a great startup environment. It's low overhead, and this is a city that welcomes creativity, and let's grow that next big industry. And you know, you don't know where the next big company, big idea is going to come from. So I think that's really important in being very diligent about bringing in those industries and recruiting in and taking everybody up with them as well.
Very good. This next question is a little bit of a kind of a lark on the part of the podcast here, but we've asked every candidate this.
Oh, okay. So, is it a fun one, or should you want to be worried?
It's silly.
It's silly.
So,
did you send it over?
I did.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to.
But I think people missed it, or maybe I didn't put it in because people have all been shocked by it.
Okay.
But, okay. Here, bear with me here. You're driving down a dark road on a stormy night. You're groggy. Your vision is getting a little blurry, and as you round the corner, you see a squirrel in the middle of the road playing a tiny magic glass flute. Now, do you swerve, take the ditch, and miss the squirrel, or do you hit the squirrel?
Oh, you can't hit the squirrel. You can't hit the squirrel. It's playing a flute. No, you gotta. I mean, that is internet gold. Like, I will take the ditch. I will take the ditch, and then I will get video of that squirrel, and then I will be fine because
you're gonna monetize.
I will monetize the squirrel video because you remember the squirrel, the water skiing squirrel?
Oh yeah.
like, what is his name, Chippy or something? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I think there's been a few
squirrel.
So,
what more do you need?
Exactly. So, I mean, if there's a squirrel playing a flute, and then, being the good mayor I will be, we're going to make this a tourist attraction. Now, the squirrel will not be, like, caged in and not have his squirrel freedoms, his or her squirrel freedoms, but, maybe we have, the International Day of the flute-playing squirrel.
Squirrel Day.
Squirrel Day, and then, like, all of the squirrel fans come to Sioux Falls. Now, I know that you're laughing. This is a very good economic driver. Now, granted, we have to get the squirrel here.
Right.
So, I grew up in a town of 5,000 in Wayne, Nebraska, which it was famous for chicken days.
Nice.
And I don't know what the numbers are anymore, but it used to be they'd bring in, I think it was 10 to 12,000 people would come in to cluck like a chicken for the National Cluck Off.
Nice.
And it turned into this whole thing. So, I see a lot of economic opportunity, which is what I would want in my mayor, to see how we can save the squirrel and make some money off that squirrel. Wait, what's the squirrel playing? I mean, it's playing a flute, but what song?
We've never specified.
Okay.
So,
I'm curious.
Something that sounds good on a flute, I would assume.
Yeah, I wasn't a flute player. My sister
Me
was.
neither.
So I don't know what does sound good on a flute. I feel like something fifey and American.
That's what I'm picturing.
I don't even know if this is how you pull the... Wait.
Close enough.
Okay, yeah. Someone will make a screen grab of that and probably like, what in the world?
I'm hoping we haven't quite reached that yet in local politics, but,
You never know. I was a saxophone player and a horrible one at that, so...
Clarinet.
Oh, you...
I thought I'd meet girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tough part about band.
Yeah, it is. This is the last question here.
Okay.
Why specifically should I vote for you over any other candidate running?
Yep. And I think that's a great question because you are going to get 6 candidates that are obviously going to say, I am anti-crime, I am pro-jobs, but you are not going to get any other candidate that is going to say government needs to be opened up the way we have already opened it up. I mean, you can go to our website, we put our financial disclosures out there because we want that stuff to be easy for people to find. And you can go through that and see, I'm not the candidate that has the most money, I'm not the candidate that's been bought by big money. I'm a big idea person, not a big money person. So I think that makes a difference in being someone that has championed those ideas and values of transparency. And I think when it comes to growth, no one has brought forward solutions and ideas for growing the economy with having had experience from starting a business from literally nothing into what it is today, starting 2 of them. No one else has that track record, can speak to that biotech world and that startup world. And then I think as the conversation tends to be going back around to crime a lot in the city and safety, there is not a single candidate other than myself that can tell you that what they've done for the last 6 years is work to protect children and families and have a success record like I have. I haven't spent the last 6 years of my life, 6+, banking political favors and planning some political ascension. I haven't. What I've done is do the really hard work of protecting kids and families. And that is something that no one else has a record that can compare to it. And I think, we all love this city. But we are at a position in Sioux Falls where we have opportunities like we've never had before. We have challenges like we've never had before. So what we need is a mayor that looks like nothing like what we've seen before. And I think that next mayor is a 4'11.5" woman. And that's why I think it's time for something new, it's time for something young, and it's time for someone that doesn't just point to problems and go, well, this doesn't work and this doesn't work and these are challenges and but instead says, yeah, those are challenges or those are opportunities and here's what we're going to do on day 1.
Very good. Jolene, one last thing. How can people learn more about you?
Yes. Oh, so now I get to give my pitch, the website pitch?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So it's letsgojo.com. We won't make you try and spell Loetscher. LETSGOJO. And then otherwise, we're on Facebook, obviously. If you just search Jolene Mayor, I think it'll all come up for you. Otherwise, it's Let's Go Joe SF. And on Twitter and on Instagram, and we have a Snapchat, but I'm not very good about using it.
Same here.
And except sometimes I do those little weird face things. Just
I think I missed that divide by like 3 years because my younger sisters use it, but I'm just like, I don't get this.
Yeah, like every so often I'll just like, give myself like crazy face or like weird glasses. I'll be like, oh, there's Snapchat. I just did that. And then, and then our text number is 605-951-0246. And of course there are multiple panels and forums still to come, so
Absolutely.
I encourage people to get out there and get engaged and get registered if you're not.
Yes, please.
Please do that. The deadline to register is March 26th. If you are not sure if you are registered, we've got a link on our site. You can check it and get all that information, or you can call the county auditor's office. But make sure you're registered because the worst thing is to be really ticked off that you don't like how things are going and you can't have a voice.
Yep.
And so you've got to make sure you've got that voice. And then, of course, to vote on April 10th. Absentee also starts on March 26th.
Very good. Jolene, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.